to take. Councillor Tierney, would you like
Yes,
to?
thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
we are talking about the statement of investment principles today, yeah?
Yeah.
I think it just occurred to me, I mean, I'm very much the Labour on this, and this is quite, the language of this committee is really quite a specialised language. I think we all have to uncertain that. But I don't think, I mean, I think we, you know, is that policy on socially responsible investment, I presume that is our policy, that's what it is, that strong enough? I mean, we're saying, you know, we will discourage this. I mean, we've got a big problem, for example, obesity, and people dying of lung cancer. Now, obesity is a major problem, but I mean, are we digging in enough with this? I mean, are we, you know, what about the company? Are we investing in companies that sells calorie laden, God knows what? I know we're still investing heavily in tobacco companies, which we discussed in this committee before, and I got a very precise answer about it. But, you know, is this language is it not, I mean, I know it's very much, I'm very much the Labour on this, but is this language firm enough? You know, is it specific enough?
Yeah, I think we could probably look at it in the form of a working group at some point in the future, but we are investing in pooled assets. That's the problem we have. I think that's what Mr. Brown was going to mention.
Yeah.
We're basically, there's other investors in the funds that we're invested in.
Yeah.
So, but then we can make an actual choice in the future not to invest in funds.
That's right. Well, that is, we say, for example, the committee encourages fund management. Well, you know, maybe go a little further, because it's our money after all. And actually, even from a clinical point of view, people having great illnesses as a result of obesity is a national problem. You know, that costs the state in the end, that costs the state more money. You know, it costs everybody more money.
What would you not invest in regarding obesity?
Well, I mean, I don't know what the whole range of products are. Remember, we had the one about the tobacco, but there's lots of companies that may well be investing in some of them, I don't know this year, that, you know, sell products which are calorie laden and do lead to obesity, particularly in children, you know, and all that. We hear it on the news every day, and we may not be investing in those companies, but we may. So that's why I'd like to maybe get more specific.
Okay.
One of the things you have to sort of think of at a very high level for your pension fund is your pension fund is completely separate from your what broadly called investment, your general fund, and you are proscribed, you are not allowed to use the pension fund as any kind of tool of policy. So the members of this committee are here to have governance and oversight of running the pension fund to meet its obligations in the future. And there are different ways of doing that, there are different opinions on that. You essentially have to invest the pension fund to meet the liabilities of your pensioners as they fall due. You need to be able to pay pensions.
Yes.
And that's your first consideration. And it has to be your main consideration. There can be things that are peripheral to that you can't establish like another objective that we are going to use this pension fund to address obesity, for example. The trouble is you have essentially what's known as a double bottom line there. And if you addressed obesity through this pension fund, but you somehow had a lower return and you made it either more difficult to meet pensions in the future, or there had to be bigger inputs from the taxpayers of this borough, then you've not acted in the best interests of either the pensioners or of your taxpayers.
Yes, but I mean, I still think it could be tightened up a little bit.
Okay, so it's a point. Obviously, we've got to consider the return of the pensioners.
Yes, I know our objective is to keep the fund financially secure.
I think we should consider it definitely in a working party environment, if it is possible to, you know, I think it's part of Woolly subject. It's very difficult.
It's a balancing act.
And morally, you're making moral judgments on companies. It's very hard. Anyway, it's a good point. Councillor Marshall, and then Councillor.
Well, can I say first of all, I'm a trustee of a charity where an ethical investment policy has been pursued, and the fund managers admit that has underperformed as a result. And if you look over the last decade, one of the most dynamic sectors was in fact the tobacco sector. I bought some shares of British American Tobacco in 2000 and sold them in 2011 and netted a very nice profit.
There's a surprise. There's a surprise.
But I did take the profit. But the difficulty sometimes is how to define ethical investment. Councillor Tierney has spoken about obesity. It's very difficult to find a company that is responsible for obesity. A lot of obesity is the responsibility of individuals who don't actually exercise themselves as much as they ought to do. So it's a very broad issue, and I think we have to remember that our job is to ensure that the fund is as well funded as possible, because otherwise it falls back on the council taxpayer. If it falls back on the council taxpayer, then at a time of austerity, it falls back on the citizens of the borough who will get fewer services if we're having to top up the pension fund. So it's a very broad issue, and I'm sure Councillor Tierney wouldn't want to do anything that was going to affect the services provided by this council. And an ethical investment policy could well do that.
The council taxpayer ultimately picks up the bill for the obesity and for the lung cancers and all of that. So this is a wide thing, this taxpayer.
At least I have more money to pay